Hi, everybody. My name is Logan Sloan. I'm a senior here at Winters Mill High School, and today we are doing our Black History Month culture chat. So we are joined by Mr. Brown, our wonderful Winters Mill High School principal. I almost said president. And also our culture chat hopeful for next year, Darbah Wright.
Hi, I'm a junior. I'm vice president of CDU. And yeah, hopefully taking over next year when Logan leaves.
Yeah. Alrighty. So Darbah, do you want to start us off with our first question?
Yeah. So what exactly does Black History Month celebrate, and why do you celebrate it?
So, first of all, I want to thank you all for inviting me to Culture Chat. I remember, starting the very first Culture Chat a couple of years ago, and it's just nice to see things come kind of full circle, and for you guys to be focusing in on that. Don't worry about the phone. This is the thing you gotta learn about culture chats. It's never gonna go 100% perfect. So we're at a school. There's gonna be bells. There's gonna be phones. There's gonna be different things going on. So, but I appreciate you guys with the distractions. But yeah, it's good to see it coming full circle. It's good to see now, Logan, you being the second student to run a culture chat, and then Darbah, you being possibly the third, generation of students that will be running this culture chat. So for me, I'm just overjoyed by all of that. So thank you all for thinking thinking of me with this. But I would say Black History Month for me is really about reflection. And I say that because sometimes, as being an African American, you get wrapped up in your own life. You get wrapped up in your own goals and ambitions. You get wrapped up in things that are immediately, affecting your life. But you kind of somewhat can forget or overlook the things that have come before you. And so Black History Month is a time for me to reflect on all of those individuals that came before me, those individuals on shoulders in which that I stand on top of. And for me, that's important. And really, it's about my own family first, because you think about generations that came before you and the things that they endured just so you can get certain opportunities to do the things you're doing today. And usually, sometimes there's things that we complain about today, but I'm like, man, I wouldn't even have the opportunity to even complain about it if it wasn't for individuals that came before me. So it's really about reflecting and remembering those individuals that came before you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of think a lot of people forget that we had to fight for what we have now and the opportunities that we have now. And I'm very grateful for all the people that did fight beforehand, because then, since my parents are immigrants, they wouldn't want to come here if this is what was restricting them. That's
valuable. Yeah. No, it's real. And I think that no matter what generation that you are here, being African American, or true African, or I say this all the time to people that know your history, even if you're from the Caribbean, right? So if you're Jamaican or you're Dominican, all of these areas still are Black history, and you still have to celebrate all those individuals that came before you and embrace the struggles and learn about. And I also will say this, it's also a time to learn and be purposeful about your learning. So I usually challenge myself with reading different novels during the month, right? That are, focusing on Black history. And maybe I don't get the opportunity to read those books the rest of the year, but I want to make sure that during that month of the year that I really focus on our history, things that we've gone through in our past, and then again, how we can try to improve things moving forward. Because, it's still here. There's still things that in America that we need to improve upon race-wise, and especially when it comes to African Americans. And we can't forget that. It's not time for us to relax or sit back and just say, hey, well, ancestor did it, so we're all good. No, there's still things to do, and there's still things to work through. So,
yeah. I'm glad you guys brought up other cultures and other races, because that leads us to our next question. How does Black History Month promote inclusivity and equality to not only Black people, but to all races?
yeah, I think Black History Month really embodies. I saw, and again, it's all about really studying, the history and the influence that African Americans have had on American culture. The funny thing is that we focus on Black History Month like, Black culture is not embedded in American culture. Black culture is American culture, right? We've been here the whole time, right? So it's not like, we just got here. Like, we've been here the whole time. So the culture of different things that have been invented, whether you're talking about the chips that you eat or, peanut butter or whatever it is you want to talk about, many of these things were invented by African American and Black people. And so sometimes we don't necessarily get the credit, or people forget, right? Because you're just looking at the person that's on the box or, the container in which that you buy, but you don't really know who really invented that. So it's really embedded in the culture. So when you think about what we should be remembering each and every day, and not just particularly this month, is that Black culture is American culture, and it is for everyone, right? So we're trying to be, you want to be inclusive of everybody, but it really isn't a separation. We make the separation by making it, let's celebrate it this month. No, it should be celebrated each and every month because of the influence that African Americans have had on American culture throughout history. So hopefully people do that, think about that. But I have to implore that it's really about trying to educate yourself as much as possible, because if you don't read, then you never know some of these things. You can't just scroll through TikTok or, Instagram or whatever it is that you choose and find out some of this stuff, because some of that stuff is misinformation. So you'll see stuff and be like, oh, I didn't know that actually happened. Well, how do you know that it really happened? Did you actually research it? Did you read it? Did you check the sources? Like, how do you know? You can't just watch a movie and find something out. You got to actually read.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say like a lot of people fail to like recognize that a lot of our like pop culture and like things that a lot of people just like tend to enjoy on their regular time is created by a lot of Black people. Like their music, like a lot of popular music is from Black artists. A lot of popular like trends are from like trendy things that were a part of like Black culture in like the 90s or like the 2000s. And so like I feel like it's not like a separation, but I think people need to start like appreciating like where the things that they really enjoy come from.
Right. Yeah. And I think that I always say this, it doesn't matter. Like, so we're in Carroll County and we love, the rural aspect of Carroll County and the country aspect of things, right? So the agriculture and those type of things. And people oftentimes forget that, especially in the Midwest area, like African Americans were really like the first Black cowboys, if you will, right? And so we kind of forget about that. Just because when you think about cowboy, you don't automatically think about an African American, right? That's not something that pops into your mind. But that's what the reality of it is. So there's a lot of Black cowboys that still exist in the area, Texas and so forth, and you'll get to find some of those things out. So even when you think about the base of like America, when you think about country and you think about agriculture and these type of things, African American and Black people have had a hand in that, in developing that, and what it looks like today. So it's inclusive for everybody, and we should celebrate it. To me, every month of the year, not just February.
Yeah, I think you just came up with our next question, like right there. How can we actively engage and celebrate Black history throughout the year and not just during the designated month?
Yeah, I think we have to be purposeful about it. I think that we're purposeful about it in the month of February, right? We're doing this culture chat. We got the African American read-in. I think that's tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. And so we're purposeful about celebrating it. But I don't want us to just celebrate it just on those particular times or be purposeful about it. Why aren't we more purposeful about it and celebrating that throughout, the year? Whether that be, what we study in our curriculum and things that offer. I saw I think it's in another county, they started offering this class of like the history of hip hop, right? And so how cool would that be just to kind of have a class that studies that for kids to actually take that as an elective or something like that, right? So it's just those small little things that I think will help us kind of move forward as far as us not just focusing in on Black history during that month, even for the things of like what we can do as far as field trips and everything else. What are we doing to kind of edify ourselves? We're going to the African American History Museum in DC. Maybe we're going to the Blacks and Wax History Museum in Baltimore, Maryland. Like, these are things that are already here for us. Frederick Douglass, probably the greatest, one of the greatest African Americans of all time, was from Maryland. Eastern Shore as a slave, escaped to Baltimore, right? And is this iconic figure. But we live right around the corner, and how much do we know about Frederick Douglass or about his plight, or do we go to the Eastern Shore and try to figure some of these things out? Like, these are things that are already here for us in our own region. So we got to ask ourselves, what are we doing every day to kind of learn a little bit more about African Americans throughout the course of the year? So I would just say being purposeful about it, asking your teachers, individuals, even myself as a principal, going to individuals of power and just trying to find out what it is that you can do to kind of keep things going.
Mm-hmm. Also, what's her name? Harriet Tubman. She was also from Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
Another iconic figure.
Yeah.
But what are some criticisms about Black History Month that you've seen?
I would say, and I wouldn't necessarily say criticism. I would say a growth area, right? That's what I would say. And I would say where we still need to kind of grow at is, just trying to make Black History Month tolerable just for the period of time for Black history. And what I mean by that is, okay, so anybody might be fine with things that we celebrate during the month of February, right? But what about March? So if we start doing some of these same things in March, would some people have a problem with it? Would it be an issue, right? Or in I know Juneteenth, that's something that we now celebrate it as well, and that's kind of new, but that also could end up being a super big holiday in years to come. I don't want us to just tolerate things. I want us to really, truly celebrate them, right? And to celebrate them, and you think of the core word of like celebrate, let's be happy, jovial, like excited. Are we excited about Black History Month? Or do you know what I mean? Is celebrate the right word? I mean, you have to really think about that. I don't always look at Black History Month as something that is a nationwide celebration. I look at it as being a celebration for Black people, but I don't know if it's a celebration for all people about the history of America that this, group of people got to actually invest in America and do different things in the right way. So that, to me, I think that's the things we have to really improve upon, is really celebrating Black culture, celebrating the history of Black people, and not it be something that's just cliche, not it being something that we're just going through the motions on, and not being something that we just say, hey, look, we just got to get through this month. And yeah, we'll throw a couple pictures up about, Harriet Tubman. There's so many iconic Black figures that young Black people and people in general should know more than just Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and and they're like, all right, cool, like I'm good. Check. I know my Black history. No, it's way more than that, and I wish people would know that when we're in this month of celebration.
Yeah, I agree. So how do you celebrate Black History Month?
For me, like, I said earlier, I think it's about challenging. I try to challenge myself to be more purposeful about not only, like talked earlier, about learning more about it, because I try to do that every month of the year. So that's not necessarily special for Black History Month for me. But what I really honestly try to do is focus in on what I'm really passing down, and whatever the legacy is for my children, what the legacy is for you all as students, and focusing on how I can take what I've learned, right, and edify those people, and those people, I call them the masses, but how I can edify the masses, right, and be unapologetic about those things. So you guys will see me do different things in the school and not even realize that there's a reason and a method to my madness, right? And so even today, like, depending on wearing, there's different things little small different things that I will do. So that you all purposely ask questions about it, and then I can edify you guys from there on why I do certain things, what's the history behind it, and those type of things. And I think that's a part of, like you talked about the other question about being inclusive. Well, I think that's also about being inclusive, because I have to be, as an African American, truthful about who I am, what the culture has brought me, and be unapologetic about that, right? And it's embedded in so many different ways, right? We talked about, culture and music and those type of things. Like, hip hop culture is a part of Black history. Like, it's a huge part of Black history for me. So, from the sneakers that you all wear, that's hip hop culture, right? So it's hip hop culture is now popular culture. That's huge. Like, that is, I had this argument with a professor when I was in undergrad, and the argument was, history professor, argument was, he said rock and roll will live forever. He said hip hop is just, or rap is just something that will eventually die out. And I said, I said, I don't think so. You know what I mean? I was like, I really don't think so. I was like, I think this is here to stay, and I think it's going to continue to grow. And the proof is here now, where hip hop culture used to be this underground culture where it wasn't really recognized, to now it is the most popular music platform in the world. You guys go on your playlist, probably the first, 5 out of 10 songs is probably hip hop based, easily, right? And that's whether you're white, Black, Latina, like, it doesn't matter. Like, that is probably what it is. And for you all, it's embedded in everything that you wear, do, say, and everything else. So that's where I'm talking about is, are we recognizing the impact that Black culture has had on society, and recognizing that and embracing that? That's why I say all the time, being inclusive. There really shouldn't be any hate amongst the races with you all as young people, because look at the foundation that you all have, that you have together. Like, that is special. When you guys have commonalities with how you dress, how you talk, the music you listen to, where's the hate at? Because your skin color is different than somebody else's, but everything else is the same. So there really shouldn't be any hate. There shouldn't be any hateful language or anything else. Like, that should really be something that dissipates over the course of time. And I'm eager on what you all can do moving forward as young leaders on what the world is going to look like in 10, 15, 20 years from now, because of you guys have the power to change it. You guys have the power to extinguish racism, extinguish hate, extinguish all of those things. It's within your power to do so. So I'm excited for you all, what you guys are going to do next.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like just, I don't know, but like, in order to extinguish racism, we have to like educate others about what is going on. Like, yeah, they use our culture and like the way we talk and like the music they listen to and the way they dress. But I feel like they're not understanding also not only like Black joy, but like Black trauma that led us to be where we are. Like,
Mhm.
I think people need to really educate themselves on like these past few years, especially with like police brutality and um yeah, like stuff like that. Like I feel like they really need to look into it and understand that our pain is not just coming out of like nowhere.
Yeah.
Like they need to really think about why we feel the way we do and why we choose to celebrate this month. Um, yeah.
Yeah. And the truth, and this is a thing about history in general, right? Not just Black history, but history in general. What I've seen that other cultures have embraced that America we still have trouble with, and I understand why, because there's trauma there, there's deep wounds there, right? Um, Other cultures like in Germany was Adolf Hitler and that whole horrific situation that they went through as a country. They teach to it, not run away from it, right? Because their biggest fear is they don't want another situation like that to repeat in their country's history, right? Yes, that happened, but let's recognize it. I'm not going to celebrate it. We're going to recognize it for what it is, teach to it, and so that doesn't happen again. And so for us, I think sometimes we have a tough time embracing the history that no matter how rough and horrific it may have been, we have to embrace that, I think, a little bit more as far as American culture wise and not be ashamed of it, not be defensive of it, right? Logan, you're a white male. You did, you know what I mean? Like whether your ancestors had slaves or not, you know what I mean, are not like that. So it's nothing for you as a person to be embarrassed about or to be shameful about. It's something for you to learn about. So, one day, if you have children and those type of things that you can actually teach to certain things as well, right? But if you never embrace it and you run from it, that's how ignorance continues to spawn over decades and generations, is because we're not actually teaching to it. We're ashamed of our own history. And there's nothing that we should really be ashamed of. It's things that we should teach to, so we don't have a repeat of some of the things in our past. And I think that's okay to do.
Yeah, definitely peeling back the layers of history. I think that's something like in today's age, some people still struggle with doing. And like I've seen progression of it. People are getting better and like being more understanding that, hey, this happened. We need to talk about it, or talking about this can help us be better. So I feel like that's really important. I'm glad you guys brought that up.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I
not.
think
It's tough because you don't want to. Even it is a thing. It's trauma for everybody. So I think that's another thing people don't really understand. It's trauma for Black people. It's trauma for white people. It's trauma for anybody. Nobody wants to look at a photo from, 1920 or whatever it is, of a lynching, right? That's tough for anybody to actually see or to look at. It's tough for me. It's tough for you all. It's tough for anybody. But it's also necessary to learn so that we don't repeat that way of life now. You know what I'm saying? Or in the future. I think that's really important.
yeah, I think that in order for our newer generation to overcome this, it takes learning to unlearn what has been taught to them for so many generations. And I think our first step is just to just understand and just see where everyone's coming from and see their different point of views and perspectives of their way of life. And I think after we get past that part of understanding that everyone has like a different place that they come from, then we can finally move forward and like unify our generation and our people
I, w- I
coming.
was I would say this to you, Darby, as well. For the generation that you're in, as being, young and Black, I think it's important also to understand you also have to look at things a certain way, that you are also not super offended by somebody else's lack of knowledge of something, right, in relation to your culture. So you can't be mad because, Logan doesn't know about lynchings or, whatever. You can't be mad at that. Like, you also have to be in a place of, okay, he doesn't know. So, okay, let me teach you. You know what I mean? What's going on with that, or you may not know why you wear this, or do, like, let me teach you, versus getting angry about something. I've tried to use my life in a way which I can teach individuals that don't necessarily know about African American culture or my culture. I try to let them know a little bit more about me and what it is, but not in an angry way, in the way in which that they can feel comfortable coming to me and asking me something, right? Without me blowing up, or, you know what I mean? Whatever, like, because everybody doesn't know, right? They should know. It's 2024. They should know, but they don't know. So we have to do a better job of teaching. Like I talked about, can't just do it during Black History Month. Like, there has to be something that, you teach to and teach about each and every day with friends that you have and networks of individuals that you are around. You have braids in your hair. How many people want to touch your braids, or, hey, how you, and you're like, whoa, like, you can't just punch them in the face. You gotta be like, wait a second, don't touch my hair, right? But let me teach you a little bit about the hairstyle and why I do it this way and everything else, right? And that's okay. But that's the only way people want to actually learn more about African American culture and Black culture, is if we kind of teach them.
I definitely agree with that. I really think people are curious. I feel like they want to learn, but maybe the environment around them is kind of like refraining like their mindset of like them actually wanting to learn, because people are just naturally curious.
Yeah.
So I think if we make them feel comfortable enough to like want to learn, then they'll be more willing to.
Yeah. I agree. And we just gotta set the culture for learning. It's no different than the culture that your teachers try to set in the classroom. They try to set a culture where kids feel comfortable to ask questions if they need to ask questions. A bad classroom is a classroom where everybody's afraid to ask a question because they might get shot down or like whatever, you know what I mean? But a good learning environment is an environment where everybody feels free. There are no dumb questions. Everybody feels like they can ask something and learn something. And that's the culture that we, have to continually set between races, that I think in America we just have to do a better job of, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. That was awesome, guys. Oh my gosh. Well, that brings us to the end of our culture chat. Thank you both so much for coming on. Darbah, I'm so happy that you're with us. You did an amazing job. And Mr. Brown, thank you for taking the time. We know as principal, you are very, 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 very busy. So we really appreciate you taking the time to be on here with us.
No, again, and thank you to you all, our champions. Logan, just so I had this opportunity, thank you so much this year for doing these culture chats. Again, carrying that baton that was there before you. I think it's incredibly important work that you've been able to do that this year. So I'm extremely proud of you and everything that you've done to keep that moving. And Darbah, you doing this, I didn't even necessarily know. So that's a welcome surprise for me. But I am equally excited for you to carry on that baton and go on for next year. So I'm excited to see the guests that you're going to have, the conversations that you're going to have going into next year. So thank you so much. I'm so proud of both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, until next time, thank you and goodbye, everybody.
All right. See you guys.
See ya.